right.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Take one.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Take one.
This is John Pyzel, the owner and founder of Pyzel Surfboards. What made you want to start Pyzel Surfboards when you first started?
I didn't really think of it as like starting a company or anything, you know. It was just like I just wanted to start shaping surfboards.
Yeah.
I was always really interested in the boards I was getting from my shapers, like when I was younger, like when I was your guys' age. And I had a couple guys that were really cool. This guy Matt Moore in California, and then when I moved to Hawaii later on, Jeff Bushman.
Okay.
And both those guys were just really good guys that I liked. And then I was always interested in designs and stuff, surfboards. And so eventually it wasn't like a plan. It was just like, okay, I'm going to try to shape a board. I was fixing dings and glassing boards. And then I'm like, I'm going to try to shape a board and see how it turns out. And so I did that, and it turned out all right.
Yeah.
So I kept going. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to start this company and do this, be a shaper even, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, hey, let's just try this one board at a time and then see how it goes. So
those guys kind of mentored you?
Yeah, like Matt in California was really cool as far as I just watched him shape all my boards, and he never and this was back in hand shaping, like wasn't like a machine shape. Like I rode for him, I was on his team, I rode for Rip Curl and a couple, you know, I was like a amateur sponsored guy, and Matt always just let me watch him shape my boards, and I could ask all these questions, so I was always interested in it, but I never did any shaping. And then when I came here, I still hadn't done any shaping, and I started getting boards from Bushman because of being so far away from Matt, living here.
Yeah.
And so I started getting boards from him, and he just was when I decided, like, hey, I want to try to shape some boards, he was just super cool. He was like, oh, here, let me show you, like, let me help you, and like just really awesome in that sense.
And that was before like the machines.
Yeah,
it was all hand shaping.
So it was just as shaping machine started, but I just hand shaped boards for like probably the first 1,000 boards I hand shaped.
What year did the machine come out for shaping?
That was in
boards?
the early 90s, like, or mid 90s.
There
was in the early 90s there were machines, but they weren't like, now guys like have their own machine. This was like there'd be a big company and they would cut everybody's boards for them. So, and you couldn't make like real changes to stuff the way like I design boards. Like if you want me to, I'm gonna thin the nose out or do these little things, I can change boards for you guys. Back then it was kind of like you got one board and you could make it just different sizes, and then you could scan a new board and do that same thing. And then Bushman was one of the first guys who actually had a shape machine at his own house, like at it where he shaped. And Eric Arakawa at the same time did that. And so that was like, it changed everything where you were actually designing the boards yourself on a computer rather than just scanning a board and then kind of like making different size versions of that board.
Nowadays you have like certain boards on file, you can go back and like make small adjustments to that.
Yeah. Like I can start with anything and change it all around, and I can take a little bit of one board and add it to this board, or piece like the outline of one board onto the rocker and the rails of a different board or whatever. We can do anything with surfboards now. And I can just play around on my computer and make whatever comes to my mind. Whereas in the past, back then, it was like you had to hand shape it first and then get it copied. And then you could kind of you couldn't really change that though. But Bushman kind of got into the whole changing of things, but he wouldn't, so he had his own shaping machine, but he would not let me learn the computer, because he's like, you got to hand shape boards and learn how to hand shape first, which was really cool. Like looking back at the time, I was like, oh, I just want to like learn this stuff. But for me, it was really important. I was really happy that I can go anywhere in the world and shape a board anytime.
How old were you when you shaped your first board?
I was probably I moved here when I was 23, and I didn't shape a board for about 3 or 4 years. 3 years. I was probably 26 or 27. Yeah, and like that's pretty late to a lot of it. Like a lot of shapers, guys like Eric Arakawa, he's like, well, I started shaping when I was 14 or something. You know what I mean? And for me, it was like later on, and it was just more of like something just like I just wanted to make my own boards. And I started making my boards and then just myself. And then eventually like a friend would be like, "Whoa, those look all right. Like maybe could you make me one board?" You know, I'm like, "Okay, cool." You know, so it was like a super slow process. So it wasn't like something to, and then eventually, obviously, it became my job finally. But it took so long. It wasn't like something that just kind of happened. It was like years and years and years.
Do you remember which one you shaped the first one completely by yourself?
Oh yeah, it was
You still have it?
No, I sold it to a friend and he liked it. It was
Did you
pretty
ride it?
cool. Yeah. It was like a 6'2" swallowtail with like, and I airbrushed it, glassed it, I did everything, and it worked pretty good. Like that was the thing I told myself, like if I well, if I make a board and it just is terrible, I'm just gonna kind of give up. But I'm like, if it's kind of all right, I'll just keep going. You know? And that's how it was. So it was like I just slowly did that. I didn't have much money, so it was like buying a blank to like maybe make a board that might be okay was kind of like a big deal, you know. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of gambling here. I'm gonna spend some money, whereas I could spend that same money and get a board from like Bushman, who I knew it would be good.
Yeah.
But he was really encouraging, so it really helped. He still made all my guns, like all my bigger boards. I kept getting from Bushman for several years after that, but I just started making all my short boards, and then finally I'd make I made a 610 or I made a bigger board. This was when like I was riding 8.0s at Pipeline, like big boards, you know?
You just had the 30th anniversary.
This is our 30th year of making boards.
Doing some orders with the Too Much Coffee logo.
Yeah.
When did you switch from that to the logo you have now?
Well, I always had, it's funny, like when I first started, my first boards didn't have any logos. Like now I feel like when someone starts shaping, the first thing they do is make a logo, you know? Like for me, it was more like, I just want to make a board. And then eventually I'm like, well, I'm kind of making some boards. There's one of my boards right there. I'm like, I'm kind of making some boards, so I should probably put my name on it, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually made, the first logo I ever made was actually the one that I still use to this day.
Oh.
Right? And so I made that first, but it didn't have the background behind it. It was just kind of like, it was the star in a box and Pyzel. But it didn't have the black background, it just had the writing.
Okay.
And then after that, I had my friend just draw me a bunch of different logos, and one of them was that Too Much Coffee logo. And so I had all these different, like at the time I had like 4 or 5 different logos I'd put on different boards. I didn't kind of like make one thing. And then eventually I just, when I started to actually get a little bit of like, starting to like making boards for people, and like they'd get a photo in a magazine or little things like that. Mm-hmm. My logo was so hard to see, and that Too Much Coffee logo, you can't tell what it says really unless you're like holding the board. And so I wanted something that people could like actually see it and like recognize my boards. And that's when I took the background, like, so the logo that it is today, I started making everything like that so that you could just like recognize and like tell my boards as you're walking down the beach, like this guy right here.
Yeah, you can see that.
Another guy, you're like, that's one of my boards. So yeah.
What was like the first model you came up with when you started Pyzel?
We didn't, like, back, it's so funny, like, it's so long ago, it was like, you didn't really have models at that. When I first started shaping, it was like, my friends would be like, oh, I want a shortboard, I want a swallowtail, I want it for this, whatever.
You could kind of just shape it to what you want.
Yeah,
really.
you just shape a board, because you weren't making the same thing over and over again. Like, each board was like its own thing.
Yeah.
You weren't like, oh, this is this model and this is this. It was just like, this is a short board, here's a step up, here's, it was like the length of the board kind of determined stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't until years later, I think that was kind of something that started in Japan, and that was where I got a lot of my work in the beginning was from Japan. The Japanese really liked to get boards from Hawaii. It was real special for them. Okay. And so they would come here. One of my first like shop accounts I ever got was a Japanese shop, and they kind of were like, hey, how do we, that was something they kind of started doing there. It was like models to identify stuff, just to like be able to sell boards kind of. And then it's just turned into that everywhere now. It's like, it's just a standard thing. I can't even really think of, like, I had boards called like the JPX, like John Pyzel X, or what else did I have? One of the first boards that kind of got to be a little bit more like known was like a board called the Flash. And then the biggest board that really kind of had a breakthrough for me, because John was riding them and he was getting to be famous, was the Bastard. It was called the Bastard. Yeah.
I feel like I've heard of that, but
Yeah.
no one rides that anymore.
No, but John won some contests on that, and then his mom really didn't like that name. She's like, that's a terrible name for a board, so we ended up changing it, and it's turned into, like, actually the Radius, which you ride, that, like, the Bastard kind of morphed. That's literally like a descendant. The Radius is a descendant of the Bastard.
Wow.
It's like, over the years it's changed a little bit, but that's where it really started, was that board, but with a better name that moms don't mind. That Bastard. And then the other boards, obviously the Ghost, like those are like famous, you know, that's like a board I'm known for.
Those have been around for quite a bit.
Yeah, long time already. It's funny, but yeah. And the Next Step, my step up boards.
That's been around for a while.
That's forever, but it always, like, even like that first one, like if you go back 10 years to the Next Step, they're a little bit different than they are today. You know, like they're always evolving. They're not like, okay, this is done. It's as good as it's gonna get. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like something it's changed a little bit over time, but it has like that the basic DNA of it is the same, but with a little bit of tuning.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm always tuning, like, even the models that we make all the time, we're always kind of improving on them if we can, or, you know, making, like, modernizing them.
Let's talk about fins. Do you see FCS or Futures being used more?
Well, for my boards, for sure, I have a deeper relationship with Futures. Just I've always worked with those guys. Okay. And then worldwide, like in Hawaii, even in America, for sure, we do more Futures. Worldwide, I would say when I travel that I see a lot of FCS other places. Yeah. If you go to other countries, if you go to Europe or Japan, like in Japan, I just got an order the other day for 200 boards from a big, they're like a bunch of shops, but 200 boards, everyone was FCS. Not one single order for Futures, but in general, we do the majority of our boards in America and Hawaii, both are, it's Futures by a long shot. Okay. And like I said, it's just because for me, my relationship with those guys as a company, they've just been really good. And then in the very beginning, I don't know if you guys are too young to probably even, you've seen it. FCS used to be just like two little plugs. They were like these they look like leash plugs almost, right? Oh, yeah. So there was just, two little plugs. Futures was always that box. Like that box hasn't changed, barely. They've done little refinements to it. But so back then when there was FCS and Futures and Futures had the boxes and then FCS had these two little plugs, the little plugs were so weak looking, right? You're just like, those are gonna break out. And like even the fins just had these two tiny little tabs that went in the boards. And so when the fins would just be really flexy, whereas the Futures were like locked in. And so back then it was like, oh, for sure, to me, Futures was better than FCS. There's no doubt. Like it was just a stronger, better system. But then over the years, FCS has changed, and like their current system is pretty similar as far as strength and stuff goes to Futures.
It's still like the two holes now. They kind of
it's two holes, but it's bigger and it's stronger. And then it is really nice that you can just pop your fins in and out. That's a nice thing. Yeah. But for me, it's just always been, so from the beginning, I was like, oh, Futures is better, and I've just kind of made my relationship with that company and the people there. Like Vince is a good friend of mine, and Ruby, who works for them, is great. Like Taylor, all these different people that work there. I've had a good relationship with them, and so I've just kind of tended to work with them more. And then John, of course, is a big influence on me, and I actually brought him to Futures in the very beginning, and we made a Grom fin for him when he was probably like 9 years old, and they had like a John model fin. It was crazy. But FCS is great too. I'm not anti-FCS. It just started that way. And we'll make anything. If you want to order Futures or FCS, either way, we don't care. We make fins with both companies, and I feel like they both do a really good job. But
you have a signature fin in both companies.
I do, yeah. Both good though.
What do you think about when John came out a couple of years ago? Actually, like quite a few years ago, and said like how he rides small fins in bigger waves. Do you agree with that, or?
I taught him that.
You taught him that?
No, I don't know. I mean, I didn't teach him that, but I've always believed that. It's really something that reminds me of like airplane wings. Like if you have a big wing, it gives you a lot of lift, but you can't go as fast, right? Like if you look at like a little Cessna airplane, their wings are real thick and they're big for the size of the plane, but they pick up, they take off really easily, and they're steady, but they can't get like a maximum speed. There's too much drag. And so when you see like a fighter plane or something that can go super fast and is super maneuverable, they have really small wings compared to their weight and the size of the plane.
That makes sense.
But they have to keep a certain speed. They don't work well going slow, right? They have. So I always think like when you're riding bigger waves or faster waves in general, if you have too much fin, it's going to actually lift your board up, and it actually provides a lot of drag. So you're not going to be able to go as fast as you can, and you might even have trouble with the board actually coming up out of the water, because fins do give lift.
Yeah.
And so then it's just, I've seen it, you know, with everybody. And then the other part of boards with bigger boards for bigger waves is the tails always get narrowed down.
Yeah. So
the fin size relative to the tail area is important too, right? So when you have a real narrow tail, if you have big fins, they seem even bigger.
Yeah.
One of the, but then, so like, I didn't tell John, hey, this is how it works, but I've always suggested like, hey, go down a little bit in fins, and it keeps the boards looser at speed too, right? When you're going faster, the fins are more, they're creating more, they're more effective going fast, but that makes them like tighter. So if you have a big fin, it's not going to be as easy to turn. But one of the things that cracked me up and really illustrates this is when John won the Eddie in 2016, already 10 years ago. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
But so he won the Eddie. He was riding a 10.5. The surf was giant, and I was out of town. I went to Australia. I was supposed to be on a trip with him to go test boards in Australia, and he decided to stay here thinking the Eddie might run. And I told him, I don't think the Eddie never runs. Like it was like it hadn't run for years already or something. So I'm like, I'm going to Australia. It's going to be pumping on the Gold Coast. You stay here. And then it ran. I missed it. But when I came home, I looked at his board that he's riding, and it was a quad, a Padallac, and it had these toe fins that were literally like this big, like the 4 of the same size, tiniest fins you've ever seen.
Extra small.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were riding that board with those fins? And he's like, yeah, it was sick. And like you could see he was like airdropping and like these crazy things, and it totally worked, right? So that really like proved it for me right there. I'm like, oh, you proved my theory.
How would you help someone pick a board for like not as good waves, like more smaller, weaker waves?
I think that the important things with that is like the 2 things that are super helpful is looking at like the outline in the rocker. So you want like a little bit wider outline. You want a little bit flatter rocker, so it's faster. It's like it keeps speed easier. Yeah. And then also just adding a little bit of volume to it so that it has a little bit more float. So when you do slow down on a wave, it doesn't sink as easily. It doesn't have to be a ton, way thicker or way wider, but just a little bit more. The main thing with that is like you're trying, the difference between good waves and bad waves is on a good wave, like here you guys will know, any wave you ride here, your board's gonna get up on top of the water. Like watch these guys, they're not sinking down. It's instantly like planing, so it's getting up on top of the water and going fast, right?
Because there's so much more power.
Yeah, there's speed. You get speed immediately, right?
You're riding off the wave speed instead of creating your own.
Exactly. It takes you a second to get going. Maybe you stand up and your board isn't instantly going, but you're like one pump and you're like on top of the water.
Yeah, you're flying.
When you surf weaker, slower waves, that doesn't happen, right? Your board's actually sitting in the water. And so what you have to do is by flattening it or widening it and giving it a little more foam, it helps it to stay on top of the water more, you know what I mean? And not sink too much. And then having a little bit thicker rail sometimes even helps where, because you're going slow, you can sink the rail and it kind of creates like a push back, which gives you like a drive.
Okay.
Not having a super, like if you have a super refined rail in small weak waves, it's almost like there's nothing there. You sink it sinks, but it doesn't push back. You want a little push back, right, out of your board to get you speed. And that's what you kind of, so when you're generating speed, that helps.
Boards like Red Tiger.
The White Tiger is the prime example. I mean, that's how those boards even came about. John rode the White Tiger and was like, I can't believe how easy it is to go fast and to keep the speed in everything I'm doing. And then it was like, how can we make that into like more of a shortboard board? And that's where the Red Tiger came about, you know?
What do you think about carbon fiber?
Like as for like a whole surfboard carbon fiber?
Yeah, for
like
kinda,
vacuum bag carbon fiber boards?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan. I don't think they're bad. The thing is that carbon fiber is not what they use carbon fiber in general is like in airplanes, even in like aerospace stuff, in sailboats, like racing sailboats, all these different things. They're trying to make things that don't flex. They don't break. What carbon's mostly used for is like keeping something light but making it very strong, right?
Yeah, stable.
And so and not to flex, like the least amount of flex as possible, right? Like foil boards or foil wings and stuff, right? They're carbon because they don't want it to flex. So to take that same thing and make a surfboard out of it is a little strange to me because surfboards rely on flex to have a lot of their characteristics are from twisting, not just flexing this way, but to twist too. And so carbon fiber to me is a little bit anti that, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that when we were doing like some boards with Dark Arts with John and other team riders is they were always trying to get them to be more flexible. And so it was using different carbons that were like a little bit less stiff, and then you kind of have trouble with the boards breaking. So it's this fine line of trying to find something that, like the reason that John was interested in carbon was to make boards that lasted longer. So he's like, hey, if I can just get a magic board and then it just stays the same. Like the one thing about carbon too is the flex doesn't change so much. Like it stays pretty much the same over its life. And so surfboards, fiberglass is great in the beginning, but then it flexes and it starts to not spring back. And so you get a board that's like magic in the beginning, but it kind of wears out, it loses its life. Carbon, we see that as like a potential to like keep that same spring throughout its life, and like, oh, it feels the same in 2 years of riding it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find that magic place where it does that, but also has enough flex in the first place. It's almost like it's a little tricky. At this point, we've kind of stepped away from that a little bit.
Nathan Florence, he rides epoxies and big waves sometimes.
He did for a while. He was into that for a little bit. That was another guy I was going to say. Nathan likes the next step as shortboards. His 6.0s, which is a shortboard for him. He rides smaller boards than that sometimes, but like his average shortboard's a 6.0, and he really likes next steps. But he had a theory about pipeline boards, about making them lighter. His theory was that the lighter boards, he's riding so deep in the barrel that he's on the foam ball, and that the lighter boards would stay up on top of the foam ball easier, whereas a heavier board might kind of get absorbed.
It would sink, and then that's how you fall.
So his theory was like, hey, I'm going to get so deep in these barrels, I'm going to ride a lighter board and stay on top of the foam ball. I made him a bunch of boards, and he rode them for basically a winter, and he proved to himself that didn't work. So his theory, he's just like, yeah, it didn't do what I thought. And so we've gone back away from that, back to just normal PU boards, normal weight boards, and he really likes that. And so he's kind of back to that program.
Does John ever do anything to drive you crazy?
Oh, all the time.
All the time?
No, he's great, but we have a funny like joking relationship where he'll text me, he's like, I have an idea, and I'll just go, oh no, like what is it now, you know? And some of his ideas are, most of his ideas with boards these days are really good, but then he definitely will go like, hey, he'll go off on something that seems crazy to me, but it's something to him. He's like, well, this makes sense to me, and I'll usually I pretty much always try to do it. Make it, at least like, hey, okay, I'll make one of those at least, and we'll see what happens. You know, like to me that doesn't make sense, or I'll ask him like, hey, why do you want me to do that? You know, so I'll listen to his idea, and if it's like sounds crazy, I'll be like, all right, but hey, Dutch, what's up, buddy? All right, Dutchy, go to the beach, go play. If it's too crazy, I'll just kind of ask him what his idea, why, and then if he explains it, makes it make sense enough to me, I'll do it.
Okay.
And we have a lot of one-time deal boards. But some of those have been magic, and they've turned into something special too.
But he's helped you come up with a lot of like magic boards, right?
He's definitely like, he takes I think it's not like he goes like, hey, I have this complete idea for a board.
Yeah.
But he'll be like, hey, I like what this board's doing, but could we make it do this more, or can we make it do this less, or whatever it is. So he's definitely with the two of us together have been able to fine-tune ideas and come up with things that are really cool.
Outside surfing, what are some of your hobbies that you like to do?
Is there other stuff besides surfing? I like to snowboard a lot. I don't get to do it much, obviously, because of where I live, but I do like to go snowboarding every year. I love that, and I just love like spending time with my family. My kids live near here. One of my daughters lives close by, and now we have a granddaughter, so just hanging out with them is great. With my wife, and mostly I just like to surf. I like to travel. I like to go on most of my traveling involves surfing, but I've gotten to do a few things beyond that, and sailing. I really love sailing. I've been sailing my whole life since I was a little kid. My dad is here visiting, and he's like he sold their house when I was 3 years old and bought a boat, and they were going to sail around the world. Didn't end up happening, but he teaches sailing, and he's a hardcore sailor. He's sailed across the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Wow.
He's been in races, all kinds of stuff. So I've been sailing my whole life, and my wife loves to sail. So we bought a boat. We had a boat for a few years over here. I used to free dive a lot when I was younger, living over here. I don't do it so much anymore. It's just I don't really have anybody else. None of my friends do or anything, so it's not like no one's coming by going let's go diving.
Yeah.
It's kind of we go snorkel for shells and stuff in the summer and cruise around, but not so much as I used to. Yeah, snowboarding's super fun. I never really liked it. Couldn't understand why everyone liked it.
Yeah.
And then I got into some powder in Japan, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's so fun. It's pretty cool. And it's fun to do. You can go with your family and hang out with your friends, and that stuff's super cool. It's pretty sick. Hey, Dutchie, it's okay. Calm down, bud.
You have a favorite wave on the North Shore?
Yeah, I love Rocky Point right here, just because it's right in front of my house, but it does get a little crowded. So I'd say this is one of my favorite waves. I used to surf Pipeline when I was younger, and that's just, I don't even think about that anymore. Just, A, it's too packed, and then B, I'm just getting too old for it, maybe.
Yeah.
But I really like Rockies. It's super fun and super consistent, and a little bit, it's pretty cool because you can surf it pretty much every day. But there's a couple other waves I like, but I don't want to talk about them. I like to keep, there's a few less crowded waves I like to go to that are really fun. They're all lefts, and hopefully they'll stay a little more uncrowded than this place. All right.
Thanks for your time.
Nice work, boys.
Thank you.
No worries. Easy.